This morning, I received a message that made my blood run cold. My college roommate, the same girl I rushed to the emergency room 7 years ago after a botched abortion nearly killed her, just told me her new husband is sending her parents on a $50,000 vacation to Europe because he thinks she was a virgin on their wedding night. And the craziest part? He actually believes it. This is the true story of how one surgical procedure, one desperate lie, and one night of deception spiraled into something none of us saw coming. And before this story is over, you're going to question everything you thought you knew about trust, marriage, and the secrets people keep. What I'm about to tell you, this will stay with you forever. Hello, family. Welcome to Lifetales by Sally. Please subscribe and like this video to help us reach a wider audience. It means the world to us. Feel free to share this video to friends and loved ones. Also turn on post notifications so you never miss an update. Thank you for your continued engagement. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. It was a Tuesday morning in Madison, Wisconsin, October 17th, 2024. I remember the exact date because it was the day my entire understanding of my best friend shattered into a million pieces. I was sitting in my apartment on West Johnson Street, scrolling through my phone with my morning coffee, when the WhatsApp notification popped up. Jasmine Mitchell. I hadn't heard from Jasmine in almost 3 months. Not since her wedding in late December 2023. We'd been inseparable at the University of Wisconsin from 2015 to 2019, roommates for 3 of those 4 years. We knew each other's secrets. Or at least, I thought we did. The message was simple. Girl, you will not believe what just happened. Call me ASAP. Now, here's the thing about Jasmine. She wasn't the type to be dramatic. She was calculated, methodical, almost unnervingly calm in crisis situations. So when she used all caps and multiple emojis, I knew something major had gone down. I called her immediately. Girl, she screamed before I could even say hello. Marcus is sending my parents to Paris. Like Paris, France. First-class tickets, 5-star hotel, the whole thing. I was confused. Wait, Marcus? Your husband Marcus? Why would he? Because, she interrupted, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. Because he wants to thank them for raising me with such strong moral values. He wants to appreciate them for keeping me pure until marriage. The coffee cup nearly slipped from my hand. Jasmine, I said slowly, carefully. What are you talking about? Pure until marriage? Girl, we both know. I know, she cut me off again, and I could hear the hysteria creeping into her voice. I know what you're thinking. But listen, things changed. I made some adjustments. That's when my stomach dropped. Adjustments, I repeated. Jasmine, what kind of adjustments are we talking about? She went quiet for a moment. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. Vaginal reconstruction surgery, she finally whispered. I had hymenoplasty done 8 months before the wedding. Now, before we go any further, you need to understand why this revelation absolutely demolished me. Because Jasmine Mitchell, the same woman now being celebrated by her husband for her purity, was the furthest thing from a virgin when we were in college. Let me take you back to November 14th, 2017. University of Wisconsin-Madison. Junior year. It was 2:47 a.m. when I woke up to Jasmine screaming in our dorm room. Not crying. Not moaning. Screaming, the kind of blood-curdling, primal sound that makes your body move before your brain catches up. I threw off my covers and rushed to her bed. She was curled in the fetal position, her sheets soaked with blood. Dark, thick blood that looked almost black in the dim light from our desk lamp. Oh my God, Jasmine. What happened? What happened? She could barely speak through the pain. Her face was gray, covered in sweat, her lips trembling. I took pills, she gasped. From that clinic on State Street. The one that doesn't ask questions. My heart stopped. What pills? Jasmine, what did you take? Misoprostol, she whispered. I was 8 weeks. I couldn't tell anyone. I couldn't let my parents know. They would have. She screamed again, doubling over in pain. I didn't waste another second. I grabbed my phone, called 911, threw a coat over her blood-soaked pajamas, and we waited for the ambulance in absolute terror. The paramedics arrived within 6 minutes. They loaded her onto a stretcher, started in 4, and rushed her to University Hospital on Highland Avenue. I rode with her in the ambulance, holding her hand as she drifted in and out of consciousness. The paramedic kept asking her questions. How many pills did you take? When did you take them? Do you have any allergies? But Jasmine could barely respond. At the hospital, they rushed her straight into the emergency room. I wasn't allowed to follow, so I sat in that cold, fluorescent-lit waiting room for 3.5 hours, terrified that my best friend was going to die. When the doctor finally came out, she looked exhausted. She's going to be okay, the doctor said. But she lost a significant amount of blood. Another hour, maybe 2, and we might have been looking at a very different outcome. The medication she took, combined with what appears to be a pre-existing condition she wasn't aware of, caused severe hemorrhaging. We had to perform an emergency D&C to remove the remaining tissue and stop the bleeding. I felt my legs go weak. Is she going to be able to have children? The doctor hesitated. It's too early to say. The damage was significant. We'll need to monitor her recovery closely. When I was finally allowed to see Jasmine, she looked like a ghost. Pale, hollow-eyed, for tubes running from both arms. Please don't tell my parents, she whispered as soon as she saw me. Please. They can never know about this. Never. I promised her I wouldn't. And I kept that promise. For 7 years, I kept that secret locked away. But here's the part that made Jasmine's transformation even more unbelievable. That abortion? That wasn't her first pregnancy scare. It wasn't even her second. Jasmine Mitchell, the woman whose husband was now rewarding her parents for raising a virgin, had one of the most active romantic lives of anyone I knew in college. Let me be clear, I'm not judging her. Not at all. She was young, she was beautiful, she was living her life. But the contrast between that Jasmine and the one who just pulled off the performance of a lifetime on her wedding night? It's staggering. There was Devin Thompson, the basketball player she dated sophomore year. That relationship was intense, passionate, volatile, dramatic. They broke up and got back together at least 6 times in 8 months. I heard them through our paper-thin dorm walls more times than I care to remember. Then there was Terrence Washington, the pre-med student she met at a frat party junior year. He was smooth, charming, ambitious. They dated for almost a year. She thought he was going to propose after graduation. Instead, he ghosted her 2 weeks before finals and started dating someone from his study group. After that came Isaiah Brooks, the teaching assistant in her sociology class. That was a whole mess, secret meetings, late-night texts, the constant anxiety of getting caught. When that imploded, Jasmine was devastated for months. And there were others. Casual hookups, one-night situations, the normal college experiences that most people have and don't think twice about. The point is, Jasmine lived her life. She made choices. She had experiences. And somehow, through some combination of medical intervention and Oscar-worthy acting, she convinced her husband, a man who grew up in a conservative Baptist family in Jackson, Mississippi, that he was her first and only. After that initial phone call, I couldn't let it go. I needed to understand how this was even possible. So 3 days later, I drove from Madison to Milwaukee, where Jasmine and Marcus had settled after their wedding. Their apartment was in the 3rd Ward, a trendy neighborhood filled with converted warehouses and overpriced coffee shops. When Jasmine opened the door, she looked different. Not just married different. There was something in her eyes, a guardedness, a calculation, that I'd never seen before. "Come in," she said, glancing down the hallway as if checking to make sure no one saw me arrive. We sat in her living room, surrounded by wedding photos and thank you cards still scattered on the coffee table. Evidence of the perfect life she'd constructed. "So," I said, not bothering with small talk. "Hymenoplasty. When did you decide to do it?" Jasmine sighed, tucking her legs underneath her on the couch. "It wasn't one decision," she started. "It was a series of realizations. I met Marcus in February 2023 at a church event. My mom had been begging me to come home for it, and I finally gave in just to get her off my back." She paused, staring at one of the wedding photos on the wall. Marcus was different from anyone I'd ever dated. He was kind, stable, mature. He had his life together. He was close with his family. He talked about faith and values and building a future. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I could see that future clearly. But he was also very traditional. His family is deeply religious. His parents have been married for 37 years. His grandmother taught Sunday school for 4 decades. These were people who took their beliefs seriously. I leaned forward. "And he told you he was saving himself for marriage?" "Not exactly," Jasmine said. "He said he'd made mistakes when he was younger, but he'd rededicated his life to his faith. He wanted to do things the right way this time. And he asked me point blank on our third date if I was a virgin. And you said yes. Not immediately, she said defensively. I hesitated. But then I saw the hope in his eyes, the respect, the way he looked at me like I was something precious and rare. And I thought about my past, the abortion, the complications, the relationships that went nowhere. And I said yes. The lie just came out. And once it was out there was no taking it back. I shook my head in disbelief. Jasmine, you had to know that secret wouldn't hold up on your wedding night. That's where the surgery came in, she said quietly. I started researching options immediately. I found a clinic in Chicago, very discreet, very professional. They specialized in hymenoplasty for women in unique situations. The procedure cost $4,800. I paid cash. I didn't tell anyone except the surgeon. The recovery took about 6 weeks. And the results were exactly what I needed them to be. What Jasmine described next made my stomach turn. Not because it was graphic, though it was, but because of the sheer calculation behind every moment. The wedding night was in late December, Jasmine continued, her voice dropping. We'd gotten married at his family's church in Jackson, Mississippi. Huge ceremony, 300 guests, the works. His parents spared no expense. We stayed at the Fairview Inn, this gorgeous boutique hotel in downtown Jackson. Marcus had booked the honeymoon suite, rose petals, champagne, the whole romantic setup. She stared at her hands. I knew what I had to do. The surgeon had walked me through everything. The reconstructed hymen would break with penetration, causing bleeding, enough to be convincing but not dangerous. It would hurt, just like a real first time might hurt. But I had to sell it. I had to act nervous, apprehensive, scared. I had to make him believe that every touch, every kiss, every moment was genuinely my first time experiencing it. I felt sick. So you faked the entire thing? I didn't fake my feelings for him, Jasmine said sharply. I love Marcus. I genuinely love him. But yes, I performed that night. I played the role I needed to play. And it worked. When he saw the blood, when he felt me tense up, when I cried afterward, not fake tears, but real tears from the pain and the guilt and the overwhelming weight of what I'd just done. He held me like I was made of glass. He whispered that he loved me, that he was honored to be my first, that he would treasure this gift forever. She wiped at her eyes. The next morning, he called his mother. He was so happy, so proud. He told her that he'd married a woman of virtue, that my parents had raised me right, that he was blessed beyond measure. That's when he decided to send them on the vacation. A thank you gift for raising such a pure daughter. I sat there in Jasmine's pristine Milwaukee apartment, surrounded by the evidence of her perfect life, and I didn't know what to say. Do you feel guilty? I finally asked. She laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. Every single day, she whispered. Every time Marcus looks at me with that adoration in his eyes. Every time his mother hugs me and tells me I'm the daughter she always prayed for. Every time I see my parents planning their Paris trip, so excited and grateful. The guilt is eating me alive. Then why don't you tell him? I pressed. Why not come clean? And destroy everything? Jasmine's voice cracked. You think Marcus would forgive this? You think his family would accept me? This isn't just about hiding my past. I built our entire relationship on a fundamental lie. If I tell him now, I don't just lose my husband. I lose his family. I lose the respect of my parents, who think they raised a daughter who made all the right choices. I lose the life I've worked so hard to build. She stood up, pacing the room. And for what? To ease my conscience? To feel better about myself while I watch my marriage crumble. Jasmine, marriages can't survive on lies, I said. Maybe not, she replied. But they also can't survive on truths that destroy the foundation they're built on. After leaving Jasmine's apartment, I couldn't stop thinking about the surgery itself. How could something like this even be possible? So I did what any obsessive friend would do. I researched. Hymenoplasty, also called hymenorrhaphy or hymen reconstruction surgery, is a cosmetic gynecological procedure that repairs or reconstructs the hymen. The hymen is the thin membrane that partially covers the vaginal opening. The surgery itself is relatively simple. It takes about 30 to 45 minutes and is usually done under local anesthesia. The surgeon stitches together the torn edges of the hymen using dissolvable sutures. In some cases, if there's not enough tissue to work with, they'll create a new hymen using tissue from the vaginal wall. The recovery time is about 4 to 6 weeks, during which patients are advised to avoid strenuous activity, tampons, and sexual intercourse. The results look and feel completely natural. The cost? Anywhere from $2,000 to $8,000, depending on the surgeon and location. And here's the thing that shocked me most. This procedure is far more common than most people realize. Women get hymenoplasty for various reasons. Some come from cultures or religions where virginity is highly valued and they face serious consequences, even violence, if they're not virgins on their wedding night. Some had their hymens torn through non-sexual activities like sports or tampon use. Some were victims of sexual assault and want to reclaim that aspect of their bodies. And some, like Jasmine, use it to deceive. The medical community is divided on the ethics of this. Some doctors refuse to perform hymenoplasty for deceptive purposes. Others argue that it's not their place to judge a patient's motivations. They're simply providing a service. But regardless of the ethical debates, one thing is clear. The procedure works. It's convincing, and it's being used by more women than anyone wants to admit. I wish I could tell you that Jasmine's secret stayed between us. But life has a way of unraveling even the most carefully constructed lies. 2 weeks after my visit to Milwaukee, I was back in Madison, having drinks with Shanice Roberts, another friend from our college days. Shanice had been Jasmine's roommate freshman year, before I met either of them. We were on our second round of cocktails when Shanice leaned across the table, her eyes glittering with gossip. "Did you hear about Jasmine?" she asked. My heart stopped. "What about her?" "Apparently her husband is sending her parents to Paris because he thinks she was a virgin when they got married." Shanice laughed. "Can you believe that? Jasmine, a virgin? Girl, I remember when she—" "How do you know about Paris?" I interrupted. Her mom posted about it on Facebook, thanking God for raising a daughter who made good choices, praising Marcus for being such a thoughtful son-in-law. Shanice rolled her eyes. "It's all over social media. This was bad. If people from college started commenting, started sharing stories, started poking holes in Jasmine's narrative. We should be happy for her," I said carefully. "She found someone who loves her. That's what matters." Shanice gave me a knowing look. "You're being awfully protective." "What do you know?" "Nothing," I lied. "I just think people should mind their business." But the seed of doubt had been planted, and I could see in Shanice's eyes that she wasn't going to let this go. 3 weeks later, everything came crashing down. It was a Friday night in November. I was at home in Madison when my phone exploded with messages. "Jasmine, call me right now. Jasmine, I can't believe this is happening. Jasmine, everything is falling apart." I called immediately. "Devin reached out to Marcus," she said, her voice shaking. "Devin Thompson, the guy I dated sophomore year. He sent Marcus a message on Facebook." My blood ran cold. "What did he say?" "He congratulated him on the wedding and said something like, 'Hope you're treating her right. She's special. I still think about our time together sometimes.'" "Oh no. Marcus asked me about it," Jasmine continued, panic rising in her voice. "He was confused because I'd never mentioned dating anyone seriously before. I told him Devin was just a friend, that he probably had a crush on me that I never reciprocated." "Did Marcus believe you?" "I don't know. He got quiet. He said he trusted me, but there was something in his eyes, doubt, suspicion. Like a crack had appeared in everything he thought he knew about me." Then, an hour later, Terrence commented on one of my old Instagram posts, a throwback photo from junior year. He wrote, "Miss these days with you," with a heart emoji. "Jasmine." "I know," she screamed. "I know how bad this looks. It's like my entire past is suddenly resurfacing to destroy everything." Over the next 2 weeks, Jasmine's carefully constructed world began to crumble in slow motion. More comments appeared on old social media posts. People from college, remembering different versions of Jasmine, started reaching out to reconnect. Each interaction was innocent on its own, but together they painted a picture that contradicted everything Marcus believed about his wife. Jasmine started deleting old posts. She unfriended people from college. She made her Instagram private. But the damage was done. Marcus started asking questions. "Who was that guy in your study group junior year? Why do so many people from college seem to remember you differently than how you've described yourself? Why won't you let me meet more of your college friends?" Each question was a landmine. Each answer required careful navigation. And then came the question that changed everything. It was a Tuesday night in late November. Jasmine called me sobbing. He asked about the hospital. She gasped through tears. Someone, I don't know who, told him that I was hospitalized our junior year. He wants to know what happened. I felt the floor drop out from under me. What did you tell him? I said I had food poisoning, that it was severe and I needed 4 fluids. I kept it vague. Did he believe you? Long pause. He asked why you were the one who took me. Why not my parents? Why not anyone else? This was spiraling out of control. Jasmine, you need to tell him the truth, I said. Before someone else does. Before this gets even worse. I can't, she screamed. Don't you understand? The truth will destroy everything. It's not just about the virginity lie anymore. It's about 3 years of marriage built on deception. It's about his family, my family, our entire life together. If I tell him now, I don't just lose my husband. I lose everything. What Jasmine didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that Marcus had already started his own investigation. I found this out later, after everything exploded. Marcus, being the thorough person he was, had started reaching out to people from Jasmine's past. Polite messages. Casual questions. Just a husband trying to learn more about his wife's college years. He contacted some of her old professors. He messaged people who appeared in her old photos. He even reached out to me. When I saw his message request on Facebook, my heart nearly stopped. Hi, I'm Marcus, Jasmine's husband. I hope this doesn't seem strange, but I'm putting together a surprise for Jasmine's birthday next year. A memory book with stories from people who knew her in college. Would you be willing to share a favorite memory or two? I'd really appreciate it. Thanks. It was brilliant. Innocent sounding. Completely reasonable. And absolutely terrifying. Because I knew that every person he contacted had a different piece of Jasmine's real story. And if he collected enough pieces, he'd eventually see the full picture. I didn't respond to his message immediately. I needed to talk to Jasmine first. When I called her and told her about Marcus's message, she went silent for a full minute. He knows, she finally whispered. He doesn't have proof yet, but he knows something isn't right. He's looking for confirmation. What are you going to do? I don't know, she said, her voice hollow. For the first time since this whole thing started, I genuinely don't know. December 15th, 2024. Almost exactly 1 year after Jasmine's wedding. I was at work in Madison when I got the call from Jasmine's mother, Mrs. Patricia Mitchell. Do you know what's going on with Jasmine? She asked, her voice tight with worry. She won't answer my calls. Marcus called me this morning asking strange questions about her college years, about the hospital visit in 2017, about whether she'd ever mentioned certain names to us. My mouth went dry. What did you tell him? I told him the truth, that Jasmine never discussed those things with us, that she was private about her college life. But now I'm worried. What happened in 2017? Why is Marcus asking about this? I couldn't lie to Jasmine's mother. But I also couldn't betray my friend's confidence. Mrs. Mitchell, you need to talk to Jasmine directly, I said carefully. This isn't my story to tell. That's what I'm afraid of, she said quietly. That there's a story at all. After we hung up, I immediately called Jasmine. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Voicemail. Text messages went unread. Hours passed with no response. Finally, at 9:47 p.m., my phone rang. It was Jasmine. He knows everything, she said before I could even say hello. Her voice was eerily calm, almost detached. Marcus found my medical records from 2017. He's been piecing together the timeline. He confronted me an hour ago. Oh God, Jasmine. What happened? I tried to lie at first. I told him it was all a misunderstanding, that the records were wrong, that people were exaggerating about my past. But he had too much evidence. Old messages he'd recovered from my laptop. Screenshots from deleted social media posts. Conversations with people from college. She laughed, a broken, defeated sound. He even found the receipt from the clinic in Chicago. The $4,800 charge I put on my credit card 8 months before the wedding. He'd been tracking our finances and noticed I'd paid off a large credit card bill right before we got married. He requested the itemized statement from the credit card company. He's been investigating me for weeks, maybe months, building a case against me like I was some kind of criminal. What did you tell him? I asked. Everything, she whispered. Every lie, every secret, every calculated moment. I told him about the abortion, about the surgery, About the performance on our wedding night. I laid it all out because there was no point in hiding anymore. How did he react? Silence. Then, quietly, he asked me to leave. He said he needs time to think, to process, to figure out if our marriage was ever real or if it was all just an elaborate con. He's right, she added. That's the worst part. I did con him. I built our entire relationship on a foundation of lies. And now it's all crumbling, exactly like I always knew it would. What followed was a cascade of destruction that touched everyone in Jasmine's life. Marcus told his parents everything. His mother, the sweet woman who had welcomed Jasmine into their family with open arms, was devastated. She felt betrayed, humiliated, angry that her son had been deceived so completely. Marcus's father, a deacon at their church, was more pragmatic but equally disappointed. He questioned whether the marriage could survive such a fundamental breach of trust. Then Marcus told Jasmine's parents. That conversation happened over the phone, with Jasmine listening from her temporary apartment in downtown Milwaukee, the place she'd moved to after Marcus asked her to leave. She described it to me later as the worst moment of her entire life. Her father, Mr. Ronald Mitchell, a retired high school principal who had always been so proud of his daughter, didn't say much. Just a long, heavy silence followed by, "I don't know who you are anymore." Her mother cried. Deep, body-shaking sobs that Jasmine could hear clearly through the phone. "We raised you better than this," Mrs. Mitchell finally said. "We taught you about integrity, about honesty, about living according to your values. How could you lie to everyone like this? How could you deceive a good man and his family?" "And the surgery," her mother continued, her voice breaking. "You paid thousands of dollars to surgically alter yourself so you could perpetrate a lie? What happened to you in college that made you think this was okay?" Jasmine couldn't answer. Because the truth was, nothing had happened to her. She'd made choices, some good, some bad. And then she'd made more choices to hide the consequences of those initial choices. It was a spiral of deception that she'd willingly participated in, step by step. The Paris trip was canceled, of course. The tickets were refunded. The gratitude that had prompted the gift in the first place now felt like a cruel joke. Within 2 weeks, word had spread through both families, through their church community, through their social circles in Milwaukee. Jasmine became the subject of whispered conversations and scandalized gossip. The woman who faked being a virgin. The wife who deceived her husband. The daughter who disappointed her parents. She was ostracized from the church she'd attended with Marcus. Some of his friends and family members blocked her on social media. Even some of her own relatives stopped reaching out, uncomfortable with the situation and unsure how to respond. It's now early January 2025, almost a month since the truth came out. Jasmine is living alone in that Milwaukee apartment, working her marketing job remotely, and trying to figure out what her life looks like now. Marcus filed for separation in mid-December. He hasn't filed for divorce yet. He's still processing, still deciding if the marriage is salvageable. They've been to 2 counseling sessions together. Both were brutal. The therapist asked Marcus to articulate his feelings. He talked about betrayal, about questioning whether anything in their relationship was real, about feeling like he'd been married to a stranger. The therapist asked Jasmine to explain her motivations. She talked about fear, about desperation to be loved, about the pressure of living up to expectations she could never actually meet. Neither conversation brought them closer to resolution. I spoke with Jasmine last week. She sounded tired, worn down in a way I'd never heard before. "The weirdest part," she told me, "is that I actually do love him. That was never a lie. Everything else, the virginity, the past, the carefully constructed image, that was all fake. But my feelings for Marcus? Those were real. Do you think he'll forgive you?" I asked. "I don't know," she said honestly. "Part of me hopes he will, because I can't imagine my life without him. But another part of me knows that even if he does forgive me, we can never go back to what we had before. That innocence, that trust, that foundation, it's gone. And you can't rebuild a marriage on the ashes of broken trust. Would you do it differently if you could go back?" I asked. Long pause. "I want to say yes," she finally answered. "I want to say I'd tell him the truth from the beginning, that I'd risk losing him rather than build our relationship on lies. But honestly, I don't know. Because the truth is, if I'd been honest about my past, we probably never would have gotten together in the first place. His values, his family, his faith, they all would have been barriers. So I made a choice. I chose to lie so I could have a chance at the life I wanted. And now I'm living with the consequences of that choice. As I've watched this situation unfold, I've found myself thinking about the bigger picture. About how we as a society create conditions where women feel they need to lie about their sexual histories to be considered worthy of love and commitment. About how virginity is still weaponized as a measure of a woman's value in certain communities, regardless of how outdated or harmful that concept might be. About how men are often socialized to prize virginity in their partners while simultaneously being encouraged to have their own sexual experiences. A double standard that puts impossible pressure on women to maintain a pure image. Jasmine made terrible choices. She lied, she deceived, she manipulated. None of that is okay. But she also made those choices within a context, a cultural and religious framework that told her, explicitly and implicitly, that her past experiences made her less valuable, less worthy of a good man's love. So she tried to erase that past. Literally. Surgically. And for a brief, shining moment, it worked. She got the husband, the in-laws, the respect, the life she'd always wanted. Until it all came crashing down. Because here's the thing about lies. They always require more lies to sustain them. The original deception metastasizes, growing and spreading until it consumes everything around it. Jasmine's lie about her virginity led to lies about her college years, which led to lies about the hospitalization, which led to covering up old relationships, which led to hiding social media posts, which led to keeping secrets from her parents, which led to deceiving Marcus's family, which led to living every single day in fear that someone somewhere would expose the truth. That's not a life. That's a prison of your own making. Since Jasmine's secret came out, I've had countless conversations with friends, colleagues, and even strangers online about this situation. And people have strong opinions. Some people think Jasmine is a victim, a woman trapped by patriarchal expectations who did what she felt she had to do to survive in a judgmental world. Others think she's a manipulator, a calculating deceiver who committed fraud by misrepresenting herself to get what she wanted. Some people think Marcus is too rigid, that he should be able to look past his wife's sexual history and focus on who she is now, not who she was in college. Others think Marcus is entirely justified, that fundamental honesty is the bedrock of any marriage, and Jasmine violated that in the worst possible way. Who's right? I honestly don't know. What I do know is this. Trust, once broken, is incredibly difficult to rebuild. And Jasmine didn't just break Marcus's trust. She systematically engineered it from the very beginning. Their entire relationship was built on a false premise. Every intimate moment, every family gathering, every milestone, all of it was colored by a lie that Jasmine knew was there but Marcus didn't. That's not just deception. That's something darker. Something more calculated. But I also can't ignore the societal pressures that pushed Jasmine toward that choice. The purity culture that teaches women their worth is tied to their virginity. The religious communities that celebrate modest women while shaming those who've had normal human experiences. The double standards that allow men to have sexual pasts but expect women to arrive at marriage as blank slates. These pressures don't excuse Jasmine's actions, but they do provide context for understanding how someone could make such a choice. The destruction didn't stop with Jasmine and Marcus's marriage. Their situation has created rifts in both families. Jasmine's parents are struggling with their own guilt, wondering if they pushed too hard on certain values, if they created an environment where their daughter felt she couldn't be honest about her mistakes. Marcus's parents are dealing with their own anger and disappointment, not just with Jasmine but with their son for not seeing through the deception. Friends have taken sides. Some support Jasmine, viewing her as a flawed person who made mistakes but deserves compassion. Others support Marcus, believing he was wronged in an unforgivable way. The church community has been particularly harsh. Several people have made it clear that Jasmine is no longer welcome. There have been sermons, not explicitly about her situation, but clearly inspired by it, about the importance of honesty, the dangers of deception, the sanctity of marriage vows. Even I've been affected. Some people who know about my connection to Jasmine have questioned why I kept her secret for so long. Did I have a moral obligation to warn Marcus? Should I have refused to be complicit in her deception? I wrestle with these questions constantly. Part of me thinks I should have pushed Jasmine harder to come clean from the beginning. Maybe if I'd refused to keep her secret, She would have been forced to confront the situation before it spiraled out of control. But another part of me knows that it wasn't my secret to tell. Jasmine trusted me with information about her medical history, her past, her choices. Betraying that trust, even for what might seem like a greater good, would have been its own kind of violation. Where's the line between loyalty to a friend and responsibility to truth? I still don't have a good answer. After everything happened, I became curious about what doctors think of procedures like hymenoplasty when they're used for deceptive purposes. So I did some research and even spoke anonymously with 2 gynecologists who perform this procedure. Dr. A, not their real name, explained that they have mixed feelings about hymenoplasty. On one hand, Dr. A said, I believe in bodily autonomy. Women should have the right to make choices about their own bodies, including cosmetic procedures. And for some patients, hymenoplasty is genuinely important. Women who were assaulted and want to reclaim that aspect of their bodies, women from cultures where not being a virgin could literally endanger their lives. But on the other hand, Dr. A continued, I've definitely had patients who were transparent about wanting the procedure specifically to deceive their future husbands. And that puts me in an uncomfortable position ethically. I asked how they handle those situations. I usually try to have a conversation about alternative approaches, Dr. A said. I suggest couples counseling, honest communication, finding partners who won't judge them for their past. But ultimately, if a patient is determined to have the procedure and they're fully informed about the risks and implications, I'm not going to refuse them. It's not my place to be the morality police. Dr. B, also not their real name, had a different perspective. I don't perform hymenoplasty anymore, Dr. B told me. I did for several years, but I became increasingly uncomfortable with it. Too many patients were using it specifically to lie to their partners. And I realized I was enabling fraud, essentially. These women would come in, pay thousands of dollars, undergo an unnecessary medical procedure, all so they could perpetrate a deception on their wedding night. That's not medicine. That's cosmetic surgery in service of dishonesty. Both doctors agreed on one thing. The demand for hymenoplasty is much higher than most people realize, and it's driven largely by cultural and religious pressures around virginity. We're seeing more and more patients in their 20s and 30s who want this procedure, Dr. A said. It's not rare. It's becoming disturbingly common. It's now January 11th, 2025. Jasmine and Marcus are still separated. They're scheduled for another counseling session next week. Marcus has been staying with his parents in Jackson, Mississippi, trying to process everything and figure out what he wants. Jasmine remains in Milwaukee, working, seeing a therapist individually, and waiting to find out if her marriage will survive. She told me last night that Marcus has started asking different questions in their therapy sessions. Not how could you lie to me, but what were you so afraid of? That lying seemed like the only option. It feels like maybe, possibly, he's starting to understand the context, Jasmine said. Not excusing what I did, but understanding why someone might make those choices. Does that give you hope? I asked. Yes and no, she said. Because even if he intellectually understands why I lied, that doesn't undo the emotional damage. He still looks at me differently now. There's this distance, this wariness, that wasn't there before. And I don't know if that ever goes away. Jasmine's parents have started speaking to her again, though the relationship is strained. Her mother, in particular, is struggling with the revelation that her daughter had an abortion in college and never told her. I think she's grieving, Jasmine told me. Grieving for the grandchild she never knew about. Grieving for the version of me she thought she knew. Grieving for the relationship we used to have. As for me, I'm still processing my own role in all of this. I kept Jasmine's secrets for 7 years. I watched her marry Marcus knowing the truth. I said nothing. Does that make me complicit? I don't know. What I do know is that this situation has fundamentally changed how I think about secrets, lies, and the ethics of friendship. If you've made it this far in this story, you're probably wondering what the point of all this is. What lesson are we supposed to take away from Jasmine's disaster? I've thought about this a lot, and here's what I've come up with. First, lies compound. What starts as a single deception, yes, I'm a virgin, requires dozens of additional lies to maintain. You have to lie about your past relationships. You have to hide evidence of previous experiences. You have to perform on your wedding night. You have to construct an entire false narrative about who you are and who you've been. One lie becomes a lifestyle. Second, secrets have a way of surfacing. In our hyper-connected world, it's almost impossible to truly hide your past. Old social media posts, former relationships, medical records, credit card statements. Everything leaves a trail. Jasmine thought she'd covered all her bases, but she didn't account for determined investigation or for people from her past randomly resurfacing. Third, the values that pressure women to lie about their sexual histories are the same values that destroy them when the truth comes out. Purity culture creates a no-win situation. Be honest and be rejected, or lie and live in constant fear of exposure. The system itself is broken. Fourth, you can't build a real relationship on a false foundation. Even if Jasmine's secret had never come out, even if she and Marcus had stayed married for decades, that lie would have always been there. A hollow space at the center of their marriage where truth should have been. Fifth, forgiveness is complicated. Some people can forgive betrayal of this magnitude. Some can't. Neither response is wrong. Each person has to decide for themselves what they can live with, what they can rebuild from, what they're willing to work through. I've spent countless hours thinking about how this could have gone differently. What if Jasmine had been honest from the beginning? What if, on that third date when Marcus asked if she was a virgin, she'd said, "No, I'm not. I had relationships in college. I made some mistakes. But I've grown from those experiences, and I'm looking for something real now?" Maybe Marcus would have ended things. Maybe his values and her past would have been incompatible. Maybe they never would have gotten married. But maybe, just maybe, he would have respected her honesty. Maybe they could have built a relationship on truth rather than deception. Maybe they'd be happy right now instead of separated and in therapy. What if the surgery had never been available? What if hymenoplasty wasn't an option, wasn't something Jasmine could access? Would she have been forced to tell the truth? Would she have sought out a partner who wouldn't judge her past? Or would she have found some other way to deceive? Use different tactics, different lies, different methods? What if Marcus had been less traditional? What if he'd grown up in a family that didn't place such emphasis on virginity? What if he'd said, "I don't care about your past, I only care about our future together"? Would Jasmine have felt comfortable being honest? Or would she still have lied out of shame or fear or the internalized belief that her past made her unworthy? What if I had intervened? What if, when Jasmine first told me about the surgery, I'd refused to keep her secret? What if I'd told her I couldn't support the deception, that I'd have to tell Marcus if she went through with it? Would she have listened? Would she have called off the wedding? Or would she have just cut me out of her life and proceeded anyway? These questions haunt me, because every one of these alternate scenarios represents a path not taken, a choice unmade, a different outcome that might have been possible. Jasmine's story isn't unique. It's happening all over the world, every single day. In some Middle Eastern countries, women who aren't virgins on their wedding night face honor killings or severe abuse. Hymenoplasty isn't just about deception there, it's literally life-saving. In some Asian cultures, virginity is so highly prized that women undergo the procedure to increase their marriage prospects, to meet family expectations, to avoid shame and ostracism. In conservative religious communities across America, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, and others, women navigate similar pressures. Be pure. Be modest. Save yourself. Don't give away what should belong to your husband. These messages are deeply ingrained. They start young: purity rings, abstinence pledges, father-daughter dances where girls promise to remain virgins until their wedding night. And for women who don't conform to these expectations, whether by choice or circumstance, the judgment can be brutal. So some women lie. Some get surgery. Some construct elaborate false narratives about who they are and who they've been. And society enables it. We create the conditions that make these lies seem necessary. Then we act shocked and outraged when those lies are revealed. We need to talk about this. We need to examine the values and beliefs that drive women to such extreme measures. We need to ask ourselves what kind of culture we're creating when surgical deception seems preferable to honest communication about sexual history. Because Jasmine's story isn't just about one woman's choices. It's about the society that shaped those choices, that made them seem logical, even necessary. Here are some uncomfortable truths that Jasmine's story forces us to confront. Truth number 1. Many of the men who insist on marrying virgins have their own sexual pasts. The double standard is real, pervasive, and deeply hypocritical. Truth number 2. Some women will go to extraordinary lengths, including surgery and systematic deception, to secure the relationship they want. We can debate whether this is right or wrong, but we can't deny that it happens. Truth number 3. Hymenoplasty works. The procedure is effective. Men cannot tell the difference. The idea that you can just know if someone is truly a virgin is a myth. Truth number 4. Religious and cultural communities that emphasize purity often lack mechanisms for grace, redemption, or forgiveness when people make mistakes. This pushes people toward hiding rather than healing. Truth number 5. Most people keep secrets in relationships. Maybe not secrets as extreme as Jasmine's, but everyone has parts of their past or aspects of themselves they choose not to reveal. Where's the line between privacy and deception? Truth number 6. We're all performing to some degree in our relationships, especially in the early stages. We present our best selves, hide our flaws, emphasize our positive qualities. Jasmine's performance was more calculated and more consequential, but it's not fundamentally different in kind. These truths don't excuse Jasmine's actions, but they do complicate the simple narrative of liar gets caught and faces consequences. As I write this, I don't know how Jasmine's story will end. Maybe Marcus will forgive her. Maybe they'll work through this in therapy, rebuild trust slowly and painfully, and emerge with a stronger marriage. It's possible. Maybe he'll file for divorce. Maybe he'll decide that the betrayal is too deep, the foundation too broken, the trust too shattered. That's possible too. Maybe they'll exist in some middle space, legally married but emotionally distant, staying together out of obligation or hope or fear of starting over. What I do know is that Jasmine will carry this for the rest of her life. Whether her marriage survives or not, she'll always remember that she built it on lies. She'll always wonder what could have been if she'd just told the truth from the beginning. And Marcus will carry it too. Even if he forgives her, he'll always have that seed of doubt, wondering what else might be hidden, what other secrets might surface, whether he can ever fully trust again. Their families will carry it. Their friends will carry it. Even I carry it. Because once a secret this big explodes, it sends shockwaves through every relationship it touches. So what's the moral of this story? I don't think there is one. Or rather, I think there are dozens of morals, depending on your perspective. If you're conservative, maybe the moral is, see what happens when people reject traditional values and then try to fake their way back. If you're progressive, maybe the moral is, see what happens when we create oppressive purity standards that force people into impossible positions. If you're pragmatic, maybe the moral is, honesty really is the best policy, even when it's painful. If you're cynical, maybe the moral is, everyone lies, and the only real mistake is getting caught. I think the truth is more nuanced than any of these simple takeaways. Jasmine made bad choices. She also lived in a context that made those choices seem logical. Marcus has a right to be angry. He also contributed to a relationship dynamic that valued a specific narrative over complicated truth. Society condemns Jasmine. Society also created the conditions that led to her deception. Everyone is right. Everyone is wrong. It's messy and complicated and human. And that's exactly why this story matters. Because it's not really about virginity or surgery or one woman's lies. It's about the impossible standards we set, the lies we tell to meet them, and the wreckage that results when truth finally surfaces. It's about all of us. So now I turn it over to you. What would you have done in Jasmine's position? Would you have been honest from the beginning, even knowing it might cost you the relationship? Or would you have made the same choices she did? What would you have done in Marcus's position? Could you forgive a deception this fundamental? Would you try to rebuild, or would you walk away? What would you have done in my position? Would you have kept your friend's secret, or would you have intervened? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm genuinely curious to hear different perspectives on this. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, someone navigating similar pressures, someone considering similar choices, someone trying to figure out how to be honest in a world that doesn't always reward honesty, share this video with them. Because the conversation we need to have about purity culture, about deception, about the real costs of the lies we tell ourselves and each other, that conversation is long overdue. Hit the like button if this story made you think. Subscribe for more deep dives into the complicated, messy, fascinating realities of human relationships. And remember, the truth may be painful, but lies are always, eventually, more painful. Thanks for watching, fam. I'll see you in the next video.